Ladies and gentlemen, good morning.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
It's wonderful that we meet for the sixth time for the presentation of Polish Gamers Research. My name is Patrycja Rodzińska-Szary, and together with Damian Gałuszka and Michał Bobrowski, we'll present today and comment Polish Gamers Research 2020, all Poland-oriented study conducted among gamers, presenting latest trends and habits among Polish players. This year, even the COVID-19 pandemic couldn't stop the study to be conducted to provide comprehensive knowledge available to everyone for free.
Thanks to the fact that we carry out our research every year, we can follow the trends on a regular basis. Moreover, every year we try to extend the scope of our research even further. We dedicated part of our research, inter alia, to present the habits of parents related to their children playing games, or to present the change in gaming habits related to the COVID-19 pandemic.
It's really important that thanks to support of many institutions, Polish Gamers Research Report is available for free to support Polish gaming industry and at the same time to fight with typical incorrect stereotypes related to video games. Therefore, we'd like to thank all the people and organizations who supported us throughout these years. First of all, we would like to express our deep gratitude to our partners from Krakow Technology Park and the Ministry of Culture and National Heritage. We would like to also thank to the constant support of Digital Dragon team, ARP Games and Baltic Game Industry.
As always, we want to provide you with reliable data on gaming in Poland. To achieve this, we decided to cooperate with a research department of a renowned agency Publicis Group. They not only realized the study in the second half of May 2020, but also supported us with reviewing our research goals and updating the research tool. The basic structure of the study remained unchanged, same as the computer-assisted web interview research tool. We covered habits of gamers aged 15 to 65 who use all the most important platforms: PC, browser, console, mobile, and social games. We also present the habits of and knowledge of parents related to their children's gaming passion. However, the latest edition of the report includes some novelties. First, we added a set of questions linked to the COVID-19 pandemic. Secondly, we changed the fieldwork from opinia.pl to the nationwide research panel Ariadna, maintaining the focus on study on Polish internet users aged 15 to 65 years old. The total sample size of the study, main sample plus booster, is 1,737 respondents, including 594 parents of children below 18 years old. To make our findings even more solid, the sample structure was corrected with the analytic weight to fit the structure of the population of internet users aged 15 to 65 regarding key socio-demographic variables. Please notice that the presented results are based on weighted data.
As always, let's start with the answer to the main question. How many gamers are there among Polish internet users? More than 3/4 of internet users aged 15 to 65 years old declare that they've played a video game at least one during the month preceding the study. Note that, as usual, we distinguish the following platforms: PC and laptops, video console, web browser, mobile devices, and social networks. As you can see, even including the oldest age group, in this case 55 to 65, didn't change the overall percentage of popularity of gaming. You may want to notice, however, that the change of panel from which we gathered the data slightly altered the popularity of individual platforms. Mobile games are the most popular among half of our respondents. Secondly, we have PC and social games network, indicated by 31% of gamers, followed by browser and console games.
For the last 6 years, Polish Gamers Research has been providing strong evidences refuting the misconception prevailing in Polish society and mainstream media, which says gamers are almost exclusively male. We hope to neutralize this false stereotype for good, especially in the public discourse. According to the trends from the past 5 years, women make up more than 40% of all Polish gamers. Comparing to last year, we can observe a 2 percentage point increase in the share of ladies playing video games. And this year, women represent 49% of all Polish gamers. Two conclusions to remember. First, more women are playing games, and second, women are cross-platform gamers. There are more gamers among women on each of 5 platforms than there were last year. This year, women consist above half of two groups, gamers playing on smartphones and tablets and on social networks. However, as I mentioned before, women representation has grown overall on all platforms since last year. Particularly noteworthy is the increase in the number of ladies playing console games. This is likely due to the pandemic. One third of the adults started playing video games more frequently with the outset of social isolation. In 2020, men have attained higher percentages comparing to women in three remaining groups and are dominating on consoles, on PC, and web browser platforms.
This year, we decided to change the way we present the age data. Instead of averaging results, we're presenting each age category separately. Additionally, we've examined the average number of platforms used by all the age categories. Let's start with the youngest. As you can see, users in age group 15 to 24 use on average more than 2 platforms. The vast majority of them reach for games on mobile devices, which is exactly in line with global trends. 56% play games installed on a computer or a laptop, and only 39% play console games. In subsequent age group, although mobile games still remain in the lead, the share of individual platforms is systematically decreasing. It's noteworthy that the popularity of console games in two oldest age group is clearly falling. Only 18% of games in 45 to 54 and 12% in 55 to 65 age group plays Xbox, PlayStation or Nintendo. In case of the oldest group, it is worth noting that if these people play at all, they usually use one particular platform.
As in the previous years, the respondents' place of residence is similar to the general Internet users' population, age 15 to 65, which is also a good indicator for the reliability of our research sample. It's worth mentioning that almost half, it means 49% of them, live in small cities up to 20,000 inhabitants or in villages. The financial situation of our respondents can be described as more than average, since almost half of them own the amount of money that is enough for everyday life, and more of one-third might have extra savings.
Let's focus on education and profession of Polish gamers. Comparing to last year edition of our research, we can observe a higher percentage of gamers that obtained secondary education and a 4 percentage point drop among gamers with higher education. The percentage of gamers with primary education is the same as it was last year. When it comes to professions, the latest result of Polish Gamers Research Report confirmed a trend that had become visible 2 years ago and last year. Games are a form of popular entertainment among working people. 61% of all Polish gamers have a permanent job, and it is a 10 percentage point growth comparing to the result of our research in 2019. Now let's have a closer look at the profile of gamers depending on their profession. We have created 3 profiles: managers, white collar, and blue collar. Managers are gamers age 35-44, predominantly men with higher education, and are likely to choose PC-installed games that they play 1 to 4 times a month, as well as mobile games they play a couple of times a week. Games on social networks are least popular among managers and are played less than once a month. White collars are gamers 25-34 as well as 55 plus. They are mainly women with higher education from cities with over 500,000 inhabitants. They are in fact core gamers interested in each of 5 platforms. However, they are mostly focused on playing games on PC and mobile platforms at least a couple of times a week. Blue collar are gamers age 15-55, mostly men with primary and secondary education. They live in village areas and smaller towns and are absolutely serious core gamers, using each of 5 platforms almost on an equal level.
This year, we found that Polish gamers might be quite stable when it comes to motivation for playing games, because we have the same most popular reasons to play on all platforms as in the previous study. They play mainly to relieve stress, as well to pass the time or cope with boredom. The data also confirms the observation that mobile gamers are especially interested in coping with boredom or passing the time compared to other types of motivations. The users of social media games are keen on companionship. PC gamers more often than others try to learn something or to develop a skill. Finally, the most elusive motivation characterizes people who play web browser games, and especially console gamers, due to the fact that they, as you can see on the slide, play games because of a few reasons.
This year, we have changed the way we present the data. Instead of providing a combined chart, we will show separate slides for all platforms, analyzing main observation for each of them. Let's start with games played on laptops and personal computers. Let me remind you that this platform was indicated by 31% of our respondents. Let's see what are the customs of gamers playing installed games. The preferred genre that were indicated by at least 1/3 of respondents were strategy games, action, RPG, first-person shooter, and logical, followed by card games. Least popular were farming simulators and casino games. Players spend an average 30 to 120 minutes in front of PC or laptop playing their favorite titles. The exceptions are casino, puzzle, and card games played from 15 to 60 minutes. However, RPG fans are the group of players who can spend up to 180 minutes on their favorite titles during one session. Interestingly enough, card games are played every day by 14% of respondents, and this is the highest score. The data collected for the Polish Gamers Research Report present gameplay preferences in terms of presence or absence of other gamers. What did we find out this year? Well, much like in previous research, a significant majority of Polish PC players prefer playing alone. 45% always play alone. However, those who play with others choose sport games like FIFA, first-person shooter like Battlefield and Call of Duty, or war games like World of Tanks. When it comes to purchasing habits of PC installed gamers, the results show that the price of the game is still important, as 57% of respondents download free games from the internet. Moreover, traditional distribution of PC installed games is still more important in Poland than digital distribution. Another specific feature of Polish gaming market is wide popularity of exchanging borrowing games from friends or family. And 16% of Polish gamers, and it's a 5 percentage point drop comparing to a year before, admit to piracy and downloading games for free from illegal sources. This year, we decided to analyze important factors behind the consumer decision to purchase a physical or a digital version of a game. We found out that the most important aspect of opting for physical boxes for 66% of respondents is the fact of owning something tangible. Second most important factor indicated by 38% of respondents was the possibility of reselling the game. 37% of gamers admitted that the price of the box version was competitive comparing to a digital version. Only 23% of gamers decided to buy a physical collector's edition. For 66% of those who decide to buy digital games, the most important advantage is convenience. The impact of the coronavirus pandemic is also reflected in buying habits. For 39% of respondents, purchasing a digital version is simply safer due to the current situation. And 29% are impatient gamers who prefer digital due to the possibility of pre-installing a game before the official launch. Among fans of digital version for PC, the most popular PC service for buying such version is Steam. Auction sites such as Allegro, OLX or eBay were indicated as preferred sources by 12% of gamers who buy digital. What's interesting, over a half of gamers, both those who prefer box or digital version buy games on auction sites such as Allegro, OLX, or eBay. 80% of them prefer the box version of the game and 18% purchase digital game keys. 2% of respondents admit buying accounts, in example on Steam, which is actually illegal.
When it comes to browser games, it should be noted that our respondents who play this kind of productions prefer simple games without logging obligation, as indicated by more than 2/3. The preference for simple titles without logging obligation is confirmed in question about registration requirements, the same as in the previous wave of the survey. Even though the most popular methods are as typical as registration via an email address or Google or Facebook account, a significant portion, it means 62% of Polish gamers who play online games in web browsers, resign from setting up an in-game account. Why? Probably because they believe that the email address is rather sensitive information. Only 36% of respondents should share it without any reservations. They take care more only for information about place of residence and phone number. The higher popularity of simple browser games might be also correlated with preference among our respondents for free-to-play model of distribution with optional paid functions that declared 64% of gamers. What's more, this choice is rather stable because almost half of them were playing free-to-play productions during last month. Let's consider a few more habits of web browser gamers. First of all, they favor especially logic, card, arcade action, and strategic games in opposition to casino titles that are the least popular. Usually, a single session with browser games takes from 15 to 60 minutes, not including RPGs, MMOs, and shooters that demand more time. In general, web browser gamers play with the frequency of one or few days per week, except virtual farms genre. Please notice that a significant group of fans of browser games prefer playing alone in single-player modes, which was indicated by 37% of them compared to only 10% who always or almost always play online. However, as you can see, 60% of the respondents, at least from time to time, play online with other players in browser games.
Let's focus on the characteristics of console players. There are two factors at play here, and they've determined the trends for the past years. First of all, the Polish market can be still seen as strongly PC-based. It's practically only since the times of PlayStation 2 that consoles have been popularized in our country as gaming platforms. Of course, with the current generation, the situation is clearly better, which is also confirmed by the sales results of games on consoles. However, it is still a long way off to the percentage share of console as in countries in Western Europe. The second invariable factor is the still neglectable presence of Nintendo consoles on the Polish market. The most popular console is PlayStation 4, used by 47% of respondents. What's interesting is that the outdated Xbox 360 has been console number 2 again, and their newer iteration Xbox One is third along with PlayStation 3. On the one hand, the data seems surprising, as it no longer corresponds to the low number of sign-ins to Microsoft Online services from Xbox 360 users. On the other hand, just look at the most popular auction portal in Poland. Both Xbox 360 games and console are still very popular. One can assume that for many parents, especially those who fare worse financially, Xbox 360 is the first console for their children. Please also pay attention to the percentage share of Nintendo. It's still only a small fraction of numbers achieved by Nintendo Switch and Nintendo DS in Western European markets. This year, we asked console users if they have any active subscription on their console. And once again, PlayStation Plus is the leader, followed by two services from Microsoft, Xbox Game Pass and Xbox Live Gold. Moving on, how in several bullet points can we characterize console players? The most popular console genre is racing, followed by adventure games and action games. Most console players play at least 3 times a week, but only 10% do so every day. Average playing time is between 30 and 60 minutes. Only in case of RPG and sport games, it can extend up to 2 hours on average. Much like in previous surveys, in the console players who declare most often that they play with others. Of course, this is mainly due to games like FIFA, Need for Speed or Forza, indicated by more than half of our respondents playing multiplayer.
Now let's take a look at the popularity of operating systems on mobile devices. Polish market is dominated by Android. This operating system was indicated by 89% of respondents, and only 8% of devices are powered by iOS. Again, the great sentiment for Nokia, number one brand at the beginning of mobile revolution in Poland, can be still traced, as 4% of gamers are using smartphones based on Windows. 1% of gamers declared the usage of Huawei operating system Harmony. Now let's focus on the popularity of sources of new mobile games. Vast majority of smartphone and tablet gamers, 89%, download the games. Pre-installation is not so popular and is chosen only by 22% of gamers. When we have a closer look at the type of smartphone and tablet games chosen by the respondents, we can see that official sources, official stores, are dominating. How, in several bullet points, can we characterize mobile players? Logic games are number one in Poland among mobile gamers. 51% of gamers have played them on their smartphone or tablets at least once in the last month. The vast majority of mobile gamers spend between 15 to 60 minutes in front of a mobile screen during a single game session. However, 30% of respondents play strategy games and adventure games for 61 to 120 minutes. Most mobile gamers play games of their choice a few times a week or at least once a week. However, 22% of logic games fans indulge in their favorite mobile genre every day. Among mobile gamers, we can still indicate the highest percentage of those who prefer playing alone, 64%.
Last but not least, the social network platform that is dominated by logic games, as was admitted by 40% of respondents who prefer that genre. For the vast majority of gamers, a single session on this platform takes from 15 to 60 minutes, and they spend more time in adventure or board games. Finally, respondents who use social network games usually dedicate 1 or a few days a week for playing. This might be surprising, but 41% of respondents who play games on social networks admitted that they always play alone. One of the possible explanations of this observation is the lack of awareness of the other players resulting from the design scheme of some social games.
What do Polish gamers think of esports? A quarter of them declare interest, with 7% saying they are passionate about esports and 18% stating they find it pretty interesting. What deserves a special recognition is that the 13% of non-gamers had declared interest in esports. It's a chart on the right-hand side. I'm sure these people have to be surveyed more thoroughly in the future. Back to esports fans. 47% follow this game from time to time, and 28% do so at least once a week, which corresponds with the figure of the greatest fan of esports. 13% are interested, but only follow the biggest events like Intel Extreme Masters in Katowice. Distribution channels remain unchanged. Polish players consume esports via YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. We also see that the popularity of games like FIFA, League of Legends, Counter-Strike, and World of Tanks is unwavering, just like in previous years. Here, there is a strong correlation with games that players like to watch the most. FIFA is a dominating power here, but it's worth noticing non-esport games like Grand Theft Auto, Minecraft, Fortnite, or Call of Duty Warzone. Once again, we ask Polish players about experience with virtual reality. The popularity of VR seems to be faltering. Last year, 21% of respondents declared they have played VR. This year, it's merely 10%. Same as last year, the most popular devices are simple DIY kits like Google Cardboard developed for mobile. The more advanced sets like Oculus, HTC Vive, or PlayStation VR each reach about a quarter of consumers.
Ladies and gentlemen, and now we will move on to the part of our survey that's particularly important for developers, the expenses declared by Polish players. The respondents answer questions concerning not only the willingness to pay for games or expansions on particular platforms, but also the amount of such expenses and the most frequently chosen payment methods. Let's start with how many players pay for games and ads on particular platform. Let's allow Michał to elaborate.
As in previous years, console players are buying games and DLC most often, 46%. It's noteworthy that's significantly less than last year. Only 48% of console players are not interested in spending any money on new titles. In case of PC players, this figure rises to 47%. We can assume that they mostly play free games and take advantage of free giveaways, for example, from Epic Store. But still, 41% of PC players buy games and 27% spend money on expansions. On the opposite pole, we have social game players. In their case, 86% haven't paid a dime, and only 14 occasionally spend money on some expansion. In this case, we have to note the huge decrease compared to the previous survey, even if we account for changing the survey platform. Preferences of mobile players, on the other hand, seem more stable. Similarly to recent years, 12% of them buy games on Google Play or the App Store, and 20% spend money on expansions.
As Michał said before, about 40% of computer gamers purchase games and 27% purchase ads-on. First of all, Polish players on PCs are still very price sensitive and have a hard time accepting the alignment of prices of PC games with the levels from Western Europe. Even here, however, we notice some progress. In 2019, 21% of Polish gamers declared that they had spent an average between 100 and 200 Polish zloty on a new game. This year, this factor increased to 26%. However, in the same time, the percentage of those who had spent more than 200 zloty decreased from 7% last year to 1% this year, and it can be directly related to pandemic. When it comes to ads-on, over 60% spend from 20 zloty to 99 zloty on them. When it comes to the popularity of payment methods among Polish PC gamers, we can observe that their top three are online bank transfers, payments with cards, and Blik. This group of gamers is still very likely to pay for games in offline shops, in cash or by card. However, this method of payment has fallen in the ranking since 2018.
Among browser players, 28% declared they do spend some money on games. The result in this case has been consistent over the years. Almost half of respondents stay in the 5 to 30 Polish zloty price range. Here we can observe a trend that's present on nearly all browser games markets. A small percentage of players who spend way more on these games. In Poland, for example, 4% of players declare they spend more than 100 Polish zloty on add-ons. Now it's time to show some answer to the question, how did you pay for purchases related to online video game on web browser? Finally, we can see a noticeable decrease in payment via premium SMS. In the current survey, more respondents declare payments via PayPal or online bank transfer. For years, however, the reasons for giving up payments in browser games has not changed. Still, the most frequently mentioned reason is the lack of trust in the payment methods offered by a particular game or impossibility to pay in Polish zlotys.
Console players buy most games in Poland and spend most money. Nearly half of the respondents declared that they buy games and 27% that they buy ads-on, which is still a decrease compared to the previous year. In the case of this year survey, we can see an increase in the number of console players who have spent less than 100 zloty. And the same is true for the 100-200 zloty price range. However, there is a significant decrease in those who have spent over 200 zloty, from 18% in 2019 to 6% this year. This is a radical decline, and once again, since the research was conducted in May 2020, we can attribute this trend to the changes in consumer behavior in connection with the pandemic. Now let's see which payment methods are preferred. Here, quite a surprising weighting. The number one payment method among console players is Blick, with 38% naming it their go-to payment method. Following are online bank transfers and credit debit cards, online payments. 28% of console users pay for games in offline shop with card or cash. However, we can see a gigantic decline compared to last year, when that figure was 56%.
As I mentioned earlier, only 12% of mobile players decide to buy paid games on Google Play or App Store. This unfortunately translates into quite a small rich sample, only 59 respondents. But even in this case, it's clear that most universally accepted threshold is between 10 and 19 Polish zlotys. In case of expansion for mobile games, the widely accepted price is 5 zlotys, which is significantly less than last year, when the figure was between 10 and 19 zlotys.
After a detailed presentation of all 5 platforms, we would like to present a short summary in a couple of bullet points to remind us the characteristics that distinguish the gamer's profile. Mobile gamers are predominantly women aged 25-44, with secondary and higher education using Android operating system and playing most frequently logical and card games. They spend less than 5 zloty on ads-on. Buying ads-on is more popular than buying games on mobile devices. They play to relax and pass the time for 15 to 60 minutes during a single game session. PC-installed gamers are mostly men aged 15-34, spending an average from 50 to 200 Polish zloty for a new game. They pay using online bank transfer and credit cards. They choose strategy games, arcade action games, first-person shooter, logic, RPG, card games to relax and pass the time for an average 30 to 100 minutes per session. Console gamers are most likely not to play alone, and that's the feature that distinguishes them from other players. They are aged 25-44, and their favorite console is PlayStation 4. They spend the most, on average 100 to 200 Polish zloty, and are most likely to pay for the games with Blick. They relax and pass the time with racing games, adventure, arcade, first-person shooter, sport games, playing on average for 30 to 120 minutes. Social platform gamers are mainly women, aged from younger to silver gamers 55 plus. They play alone to pass the time and most frequently choose logic games, spending on average 30 to 60 minutes. Web browser gamers are men aged 15-44, opting for freemium games, spending not much from 10 to 19 Polish zloty on ads-on. They prefer PayPal, online bank transfer, and premium SMS. They play to relax for an average 15 to 60 minutes and choose logic, card, arcade action, and strategic games. As in the previous year and in 2018, we devoted a large part of the survey to analyzing the way of consuming games by parents and their children. This part of the survey is dictated by concern for the youngest children who will be playing games during most of their childhood. The result of the study should be of interest not only to game developers, but above all to parents who are responsible for their children's development. We would like to provoke a public discussion in media, especially in parenting media, and to make the parents more aware and involved. The results of the research indicated a huge gap in the parents' knowledge or a direct lack of willingness to pay the recommendation of game developers. We see an urgent need to educate parents to follow the Pan-European Game Information Guidelines. Let's see how many kids play games in Poland. According to the survey, 72% of kids are active players, while 28% of parents declare their kids don't play at all, which is consistent with last year's result. A worrying trend is the falling percentage of parents playing with their children since 2018. However, it's encouraging that those parents who do play with their children are therefore more conscious game consumers, play with their kids more often than last year. Unfortunately, the issue of parents' compliance with the PEGI, European Age Rating System, looks rather bad. The age rating for consumer age 3, 7, 12, 16, and 18 should be an important guideline for the parents when they are choosing a game for their child. This is not the case. Year after year, the knowledge of the PEGI system seems lower. Worse still, parents who know about PEGI don't follow the age categories when buying games. Let's see how our subject responded. 28% of respondents among playing and non-playing parents replied that they know what the PEGI is. This is 3 percentage points lower than last year. 24% declared that although they know the PEGI system, they don't follow the guidelines when buying games for children. As many as 48% of parents, and it is 3 percentage points more than in 2019, don't even know what the PEGI system is. The next time we accuse the games and the gaming industry of inappropriate behavior of children who play a game inappropriate for their age, let's remember these figures.
As in the previous edition of the report, the most popular platform among children are smartphones and tablets, which also are used most often. Quite popular is PC, especially when we recognize that children use it for different types of games, installed and to some extent browser and social games. What's pretty obvious, children prefer fun and action-oriented genres like adventure or arcade action games, which indicated more than 1/3 of parents. When kids play games, they usually spend up to 1 hour for one session. Interestingly, according to parents, their children have the relatively longest gameplay sessions on PC and consoles. Regarding the issue of game sources among children, we observe interesting changes. Still, the most of them play free games on the internet or on the phone. But unlike a year ago, this time a bit often games are bought by parents or by children with their own money. Probably due to the pandemic situation, we observed a decline of a few percentage points in terms of borrowing games from friends. Yet, the most often parents bought from 1 to 2 games for their children during the last year. Considering the level of spendings on games for children, we have similar results as in the previous study. Most often parents spend from 51 to 100 Polish zlotys. However, this year, probably due to the pandemic situation, they are less prone to lose more than 100 Polish zlotys on new titles for their kids. Finally, the question of buying skins, items, or currency in games that have polarized parents. About half of them never allow their children to buy such goods. The rest of them let it at least from time to time.
Ladies and gentlemen, last but not least, we'll consider the single factor that has changed the entire world during last several months and which will likely do so for quite some time to come. Our research this year was carried out in the middle of full lockdown of our country, hence we also asked questions about the coronavirus COVID-19. It will come as no surprise that the forced isolation boosts interest in games as a form of spending time. 31% of adult players and, according to the declaration of parents, 39% of their children simply played more often because of the pandemic. Particularly interesting are the answers about the level of expenses related to gaming on individual platforms. As you see, more frequent playing does not necessarily translate into increased expenses. Apart from games installed on PC, the number of responses stating the expenses related to games were actually reduced is twice as big as the number of responses stating the opposite. It's clear that in the era of uncertainty, some of the players simply prefer to save money, which, paired with premium games that are very popular in Poland, allow them to spend long hours on games without paying anything. Ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of our presentation. Together with Patrycja Rodzińska-Szary and Damian Gałuszka, we are very pleased that you were here with us. Feel free to read the full version of the report on the state of Polish video game industry 2019-2020 in December. It will also include a full elaboration of the results, which we discussed in the main points during today's presentation. At the same time, both the study and the graph will also appear on our website, polishgamers.com. Thank you, take care, and goodbye.